Welcome to Beyond Chips, the Chips GU podcast, where we explore people, projects, and partnerships shaping Europe's semiconductor future. I'm Luciano Gaudio, Head of Communication at Chips Joint Undertaking.
And I'm Vasily Paglidou from the communications team. Together, we'll be your hosts as we speak with researchers, innovators, and industry leaders behind the technologies powering Europe's digital and green transition.
In every episode, we'll go behind the scene of Chips GU founded projects. We'll hear stories of collaboration, innovation, and real-world impact, from lab to the fab and practical application.
Whether you're part of the Chips GU community or just curious about how semiconductors are quietly transforming everything around us, from farming to mobility, you're in the right place.
Our conversations are guided by a shared principle: clear, respectful, and inclusive communication, just like how we work every day here at the Chips Joint Undertaking.
So let's get started and meet the people behind Europe's chip-powered future. Joining us today is Frank Lammers from Agrarsense, a project at the intersection of semiconductors and smart agriculture. As the demand for sustainable farming solutions grows, Agrarsense is developing sensor technologies that could transform how we understand and interact with the environment. Let's dive into how semiconductors are stepping into the fields and greenhouses of tomorrow. So, Frank, can you tell us a little bit about how Agrarsense is helping make agriculture more efficient and sustainable?
Yeah, thanks for the invite to be here. So, Agrarsense is a project of, many different fields, many different use cases, 7 in total. And one of the use cases is even split into different ones. And it contains things like decision support systems, robotics for the harvesting, but also the monitoring of plant health and all these kinds of behaviors, some sensing of the soil. So it's very broad in ways we actually make it more efficient. And we do that with many different partners, us being one of them. So yeah, that's basically what we do at Agrarsense.
Frank, according to your view, what's the most, let's say, interesting or even promising sensing technologies the project is developed in the context of Agrarsense?
So with sensing technologies in general, more like. So some of the sensing components that we have is visual sensing of plant health. That is being done in both 3D and 2D monitoring. And I think it's also very interesting to see the different ways in which we, from different parts where the sensors are actually being placed. I think it's not only the sensors, but also how you use them. That's very important. And in another use case within Agrarsense that is being used is actually also to help in safety of large-scale agriculture. For example, forestry, where the trees falling down can have a major impact. So it actually also helps in safety there.
Maybe it's a bit earlier, but have you already, for instance, received feedback from end users or farmers or food producers about the practical application of the sensing technologies you are developing?
Yeah, so then I can actually speak about my own use case in the greenhouses. We actually got a letter of intent from one of our testing facilities, which is a commercial greenhouse that actually once after the project is done, we want to commercialize the entire product further. And they already said okay, we want to continue with that. So there is a direct link to the market there. So in that sense, Agrarsense really helps in the agricultural aspect and also has a direct link to the market. So yeah.
Frank, getting closer to the market is, of course, the ultimate goal of any funded project. So what kind of TRL did your proposal had at the beginning? And what will be, according to you, the TRL level that is expected to be reached?
Ooh, it's been a while since I actually read the proposal, so I don't know the numbers by heart. I believe the lowest TRL level was 3 inside the project, but there are many different technologies, of course. And I think the highest TRL level, I would say around 7 and 8, somewhere between those two levels. So really far ahead. So yeah, that's at least for some technologies there. Others are done by research institutes. So those technologies are more on a fundamental level. So there I would say that they would reach level 6. So we have the technologies from 3 to 6 and some that were at 6 at the start of the project that we went to high 7 or low 8. So somewhere between those, which is also one of our main focuses from my own company.
That sounds like quite a jump, really. So that's great to hear, first of all, and congratulations. So it seems that actually the funding perhaps received was quite important, so to say, to move along. What is your take on this, and what role did the CHIPS JU funding you received play into the project?
So within Agrarsense, I'm from the partner Batenburg-Benen. So that's a Dutch partner. And we are kind of big inside the project itself. I believe 5% from the top of my head. So pretty substantial. And I can immediately tell you that without the funding on our side, the project would not have seen the end of day. We had a prototype, but we were struggling to actually get the business case internally solved. And thanks to the CHIPS EU funding, also the internal funding, to actually get the system to where we are. And aside from that, not only the development of a robotic system that we make, we also have been able to increase the amount of engineers that we have in such a way that we even were able to develop a separate robotics and vision department within the company. So it's quite substantial what the CHIPS EU funding actually did for us there.
That's great to hear.
Frank, applying for EU funding requires time and dedication. So what advice would you give to similar projects applying for future financial support?
This was the first time we actually applied for such a funding. So it was kind of a journey. I was not involved at the start of the project. People were already writing. So there was already, the meat of the document was already there. But to navigate it all into different tasks and stuff, task deliverables, work packages, I would say really keep to your strengths. So for the sensor work packages, well, it makes sense to also have the people that develop sensors to be involved in that very heavily, and also have more of research institutes really focus on the analysis of what the sensor actually reads. For the work packages that consider integration and demonstration, it's really useful to have companies at the head of that really understand their own use cases. In Agrarsense, all of the use case leaders have the closest link to the market. And that makes a lot of sense in that regard, to be able to really stick to what the market actually needs, to be able to adjust if necessary without changing that much of the plan. Plans change. It's a long project, at least 3 years. So you need to be able to adapt within the document that you're writing. So you want a project plan. You don't want it to be vague, but you do want to give yourself multiple options to actually develop if things change up. So I think that's mainly a skill, to be able to translate text about technology to be very broad but very specific at the same time. It's a really difficult thing to actually explain, but keeping highly technical stuff very helicopter view-like is very difficult. So if you don't have any experience in that, I would highly recommend getting a partner that is. I was not prepared for that, but I've learned a lot in that regard. So, yes.
Very good advice, Frank. Vasiliki, please.
I just have one last question on my side. Yeah. With this project, you're shifting to scalable product development. What is the right strategy for scaling up from R&D projects?
What is the right strategy from scaling up from R&D projects? So to give a little bit of context, Batenburg is normally a project-focused company. So we do projects that, are very specific for one customer. And once we're done, that's the project done. And we do deliver some support or anything like that. In the case of Agrarsense, we really went to a project vision. So there's a different way of looking at risks. At the project-focused ones, the risk is mostly spending too much time on the project itself. So you want to mitigate that. At products, when you go to a product design-like project, for example, in our case, then the shift of the risk is pushed way further ahead. So you only see if you actually make that market change, if you actually fit the market almost at the end of development. So there is the hit or the risk is higher. So your strategy needs to reflect that. And in our case, that meant more scary stakeholders, more scared because they also did not have much experience in that. So we looked at it very thoroughly. I believe every month we did the business case again. So that's mainly the strategy shift that we made.
That's maybe something up for each project or partner within the project to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I really do want to say is that this project made us from project-based system integrator, as I was telling you before. And some of our projects are now really product development focused. It's also given us the opportunity to not only respond to current requests of clients, that once they have a new project, it also allows us to innovate in our internal frameworks based on what we expect will be best in the future. So we can plan way longer ahead. So in that sense, there's also a strategy change for R&D because we are no longer required that it's directly necessary for a client right now. We can also say within 5 years, this is going to be the emerging technology or this is going to be the next big thing. So we can respond to that way earlier. So that's also a shift that ChipsJU brought us actually within Batenburg as a company.
Thank you very much, Frank, for stressing this at the very end of this exchange. It means that ChipsJU program works. It means that ChipsJU is really funding technologies that may have a concrete impact in a couple of years after the end of the project itself. So this is an element motivating us to go ahead. So thank you very much once again, Frank. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I hope having more clarity on what is happening exactly with EU-funded money. In the end, it's also the taxpayer that basically pays for this. So in that sense, they should be able to know what is happening there.